Chapter 244, Mother Yang's Outburst, 2. Mother Yang ran to the counter and asked breathlessly, "Miss, can you tell me where my son is?" The nurse looked up at Mother Yang and asked, "Comrade, what is your son's name?" Mother Yang took a deep breath and said, "It's Yang Lichao." The nurse checked on the computer and said, "Comrade, there was a patient with this name who registered at noon and has been sent to the operating room due to the severity of his injuries. He is still undergoing surgery. You can go to the 3rd floor and wait for him." When Mother Yang heard what the nurse said, her knees softened and she almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, she managed to grab the counter and save herself from embarrassment. The nurse saw her pale face and trembling body and asked, "Comrade, are you okay?" It took a full minute for Mother Yang to recover from her shock. She didn't hear the nurse's words at all and rushed to the 3rd floor in panic. The nurse was not offended by her behavior, because it is normal for the patient's family members to panic when they learn about their family member's critical condition. When Mother Yang arrived on the 3rd floor, she saw that the door of the operating room was pushed open. An unconscious man lay on a gurney, being wheeled away by a nurse. Looking at the man, she realized that he resembled her son. She quickened her pace and rushed towards the man. Seeing her coming, the nurses stopped pushing the gurney and asked, "Comrade, are you a family member of the patient?" Mother Yang stood by the bed and looked at her son in disbelief. Even though half of his face was bandaged, she recognized him. She stretched out her trembling hands but did not dare to touch him for fear of aggravating his injuries. She raised her head, looked at the nurses, and asked tremblingly, "Miss, what's wrong with my son?" "Comrade, the doctor will explain the patient's condition to you later. We need to transfer the patient to the intensive care unit first," the nurse said as she pushed the bed towards the elevator. Seeing her son being taken away, Mother Yang quickly followed the nurse and shouted, "Where are you taking my son?" Before she could rush to the elevator, another nurse grabbed her and explained, "Comrade, your son must be transferred to the intensive care unit, otherwise his condition will worsen. After we settle him, you can go see him." Mother Yang burst out crying when she saw the elevator door closed and sat on the ground while shouting, "I don't understand what you are talking about. I want my son. Bring me to my son." The nurse was startled by her sudden outburst and felt a headache as she looked at her sitting on the ground. This is not the first time she has met villagers, but it is the first time she has encountered such an unreasonable villager. The nurse was afraid that Mother Yang's shouting would disturb other people, so she persuaded her, "Comrade, don't worry. I'll take you to see your son, but you have to fill out some documents first." Hearing the nurse's words, Mother Yang stopped shouting, looked at her and asked, "What documents?" "The patient needs this document to stay in the hospital. You also need to pay for the surgery and hospitalization fees," the nurse explained with a smile. "How much is it?" Mother Yang asked. "You have to go to the counter and ask about this. The floor is very cold. Can you get up first?" the nurse asked her again. After being persuaded by the nurse, Mother Yang is finally willing to get up from the floor. "These are the documents. You just need to take them to the counter, and the nurse will fill them in for you," the nurse said as she handed a few pieces of paper to her. After Mother Yang took the document, the nurse left in a hurry, fearing that she would lose her temper again. Mother Yang stood alone in the corridor, looking at the documents and touching her purse. Over the years, she saved hundreds of yuan, including the money she got from Zyro Yiking. She already had almost 1,000 yuan. The money should be enough for her son's hospital fees. Thinking of her son, she hurried to the counter. After queuing for a while, it was finally her turn. When she handed over the document, the nurse asked a few questions and filled out the form. Then the nurse printed out another document and said, "Comrade, the surgery fee is 2,300 yuan. The hospital deposit is 500 yuan. The total is 2,800 yuan. This is the receipt." Mother Yang was shocked by the money she had to pay and couldn't help asking, "Why is it so expensive?" The nurse looked at the surgery information and explained, "Comrade, your son is undergoing phalloplasty due to genital injuries. This surgery is difficult and the medicines are rare. In addition, your son is also injured in his liver and has several broken bones. He also needs to stay in the intensive care unit until he regains his consciousness." Mother Yang was shocked when she heard that her son had suffered injuries to his genital area and had undergone surgery. When she saw her son's face bandaged, she thought he only had a broken nose. She never expected that her son would be injured in his lower body. "Comrade, can my son's injuries be cured?" Mother Yang asked. "You need to ask the attending doctor about this." Mother Yang nodded blankly and took out her wallet. She counted the money for a while and then asked the nurse, "Comrade, can I pay part of the fee first? I didn't bring much money with me now." The nurse agreed because it was normal for the patient's family members to come to the hospital without bringing much money. Mother Yang took out 800 yuan and paid the fee. Then, she went to the second floor to find the attending doctor. Since she was illiterate, Mother Yang asked the nurse and learned that the attending doctor's office was in the 5th room on the left. When she got to the room, she knocked on the door and a sweet voice came from inside. "Come in." Mother Yang was surprised that her son's attending doctor was a woman. After hesitating for a moment, she opened the door and entered the room. Seeing an old woman walking into her office, the doctor stood up and said, "Comrade, please have a seat." Mother Yang sat down on the chair opposite the doctor and said, "Doctor, I am Yang Lichao's mother. How is my son's condition?" The doctor took out several documents and placed them in front of Mother Yang before saying, "Comrade, you can call me Dr. Gu. This is the report about your son's injuries and surgery." Mother Yang looked at the document and said embarrassedly, "Dr. Gu, I can't read. Can you please tell me instead?" Dr. Gu nodded and said seriously, "Comrade, your son's nose was broken and there were injuries around the eyes. Fortunately, he did not lose his vision. As for the wounds on his body, his liver is swollen. He will recover in 2 to 3 weeks after taking the medicine to reduce the swelling, but the problem is that his genital area is injured." Mother Yang clasped her hands tightly and asked, "Dr. Gu, can my son's injury be cured?" Dr. Gu took another piece of paper, put it in front of Mother Yang and said, "This is a report about the injury to his genitals. I tried my best to save it, but due to the seriousness of the injury, I could only amputate it. I'm sorry." This time, after hearing Dr. Gu's words, Mother Yang's mind went blank. After a long time, she finally opened her lips and asked tremblingly, "Dr. Gu, what do you mean by amputation? You don't mean what I think, right?" Dr. Gu lowered her head and said, "This is the only way to save his life." Mother Yang suddenly stood up, grabbed Dr. Gu's shoulders and shouted, "How can you cut off the bloodline of my Yang family?" Dr. Gu turned pale when she saw Mother Yang's crazy look and said, "Comrade, calm down. Only in this way can you save your son's life. What's the difference between being killed and losing his manhood? You're basically killing him. How can my son continue to live as a eunuch?" Mother Yang yelled crazily. Hearing the noise, several nurses rushed into the ward. When they saw Mother Yang strangling Dr. Gu, they were shocked and rushed over to separate the two. "Comrade, what are you doing? Let go of Dr. Gu," a nurse shouted, trying to pry Mother Yang's hands away from Dr. Gu's neck. "Security, come over quickly," another nurse shouted while trying to hold Mother Yang's back. Dr. Gu's face turned red due to lack of oxygen, but she still tried to explain, "Comrade, I'm sorry, but I can't let my patient die on the operating table without taking any measures to save his life. He would rather die than become a eunuch. You harmed my son." Mother Yang shouted loudly and increased her strength. Dr. Gu felt as if her lungs were about to explode at the next moment, but before she fainted, security finally arrived and pulled Mother Yang away from her. Cough, cough, cough. Dr. Gu coughed violently and gasped. There were obvious strangulation marks on her neck. "Dr. Gu, are you all right?" the nurse asked worriedly when she saw the red mark on her neck. "I'm fine," she said hoarsely. Mother Yang looked at her fiercely while she was stopped by the security guard. Dr. Gu touched her neck and walked towards her. She stood in front of her and said in a hoarse voice, "Comrade, it's a miracle that your son is still alive. Isn't this the most important thing?" Mother Yang looked at Dr. Gu with red eyes, as if she was a wild beast that wanted to bite her to death. "The Yang family's bloodline was cut off by you. You must compensate us," Mother Yang shouted angrily. After hearing her words, Dr. Gu frowned and said, "Comrade, I was not the one who injured your son. It doesn't matter if you don't thank me, I also can ignore your attack. But why should you blame me for your son's injury? You are too unreasonable." "I don't care, you cut off my son's manhood, you must compensate us," Mother Yang insisted. Dr. Gu felt that she could not communicate with Mother Yang and feared that she might attack her again. So she looked at the security guard and said, "Comrade, please take care of this matter. Thank you for your timely help." The security guard nodded and said, "Dr. Gu, don't worry, we will handle this matter properly." After hearing what they said, Mother Yang asked defensively, "What do you want to do?" The security guard looked at her and said, "You attacked the doctor and injured her. We will send you to the police station and let them deal with you according to law." Mother Yang opened her eyes wide in horror, struggled and shouted, No, you can't send me to the police station. I didn't do anything wrong. She harmed my son, she should be sent to the police station instead. The security guard ignored her words and dragged her out of the doctor's office. After leaving, the nurse helped the doctor clean up the office and treat her wound. Seeing that the bruise had turned purple and swollen, the nurse said, "Dr. Gu, you may need to eat liquid food in a few days. Your neck is swollen." Touching her neck, she nodded. Every time she swallowed, she could feel the burning pain in her throat. This was to be expected since she was strangled like this. Thinking of the patient's situation, she sighed. It is uncertain whether the patient will regain consciousness. Although she snatched his life back from the hands of death, he might not be grateful. After all, which man would want to live without his masculinity? What's more, he is still young. Maybe his mother was right. At the same time, Mother Yang has been sent to the police station by security. With evidence and witnesses of her assault, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison. After hearing the sentence, Mother Yang fainted, but the police didn't care about her at all and dragged her to prison. After Mother Yang was imprisoned, no one paid for Yang Lichao's hospitalization expenses, so they contacted Han Yuheng and asked him to settle the hospital bill. But that's a story for later. Currently, no one knows what happened to them. In Zai village, Li Chenmo was cleaning the pig pen when Ling Yun came over. Seeing him coming over with 2 empty buckets, Li Chenmo said, "You came at just the right time." Ling Yun entered the pig pen and said, "Your pig manure is good fertilizer. I want to know what food you give them." Li Chenmo shoveled the pig manure into the cart and said, "I don't know. My wife prepared the pig feed. She knows a lot about cooking and nutrition." Lin Yun glanced at him and noticed his proud smile. He rolled his eyes and said, "That's good for you." Hearing this, Li Chenmo chuckled and asked, "Don't you have someone too? I see that you two have become quite close recently. When will you invite me to your wedding banquet?" Thinking of Pan Meijia's feelings for that man, Ling Yun went silent for a moment before he said, "It will depend on her." Li Chenmo thought of the gossip about Pan Meijia and the man who came to pick up Zyro yiking during the day and couldn't help but encourage him. Don't give up. Even if she likes another man now, it may not be the case in the future. "Is this based on your personal experience?" Ling Yun asked. Ling Yun didn't know that his question had touched Li Chenmo's sore spot, and added, "I hope I can settle down with her in a year or 2. Good luck." Li Chenmo didn't want to continue the topic and answered casually. With Ling Yun's help, they completed the cleaning work of the pig pen faster than usual. Before they parted ways, Li Chenmo said, "Come over to my place. My wife was preparing roast chicken." After thinking about it, Ling Yun nodded and said, "Okay, I'll bring some braised pork over." "It seems that she does care about you." Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows and said. Ling Yun smiled after hearing his words, but said nothing. At the same time, Lu Jiyu was carrying a pot of hot water to the bathroom when she saw her husband coming back from the pig pen. "Husband, I have put your clothes inside. You can go take a shower first and we can have dinner together," she said with a smile. Wife, I invited Ling Yun to have dinner with us." Lu Jiyu was taken aback while wondering when did the relationship between the two became so good, and then asked, "Husband, do you want me to prepare some wine for both of you?" Li Chenmo thought of Ling Yun's injured arm and asked, "Wife, can we have some tonic wine?" Lu Jiyu smiled and said, "Of course, I brewed that wine for you." "Thank you, wife." Li Chenmo wanted to kiss her but thought of the smell on his body and stopped. Sensing her husband's intentions, Lu Jiyu walked up to him, kissed his chin and said, "Go wash up quickly before the water gets cold." After she said that, Lu Jiyu went to the kitchen, while Li Chenmo smiled as he looked at her back. At the same time, when Ling Yun just went out, he saw Pan Meijia carrying a bamboo basket and walking towards Li Chenmo's home. He observed her for a while and found that her mood was better than before. Seeing that she was almost at the door of his house, Ling Yun quickly locked the door and walked out of the house as if nothing had happened. When he got to the roadside, Pan Meijia saw him. In an instant, a bright smile appeared on her face and her pace quickened. "Brother Ling," she shouted while waving her hand. When he heard her calling him, the corners of Ling Yun's mouth raised slightly and then returned to normal. Looking at the bamboo basket in her hand, he smiled and asked, "Meijia, are you going to visit Brother Li's wife?" By the way, Brother Ling, do you live here?" Pan Meijia asked, pointing to the dilapidated house. Ling Yun nodded and said, "I just moved here and there are still many things that need to be repaired. If you need any help, please let me know. I'm good at cleaning. I can help you clear away dust and cobwebs, she said proudly, patting her chest. When Ling Yun saw how cute she was, he wanted to reach out and pinch her cheeks. Unfortunately, their relationship still doesn't allow him to make that kind of intimate gesture. Although he felt a little regretful in his heart, he didn't show it on his face and said, "Since we are on the same road, let's go together." Hearing his words, Pan Magia was a little surprised and asked, "Brother Ling, are you going to visit Ju's husband?" They invited me for a meal, so I brought over the dish you prepared for me," Ling Yun said, and showed the braised pork inside the bamboo basket. Seeing the fragrant meat, Pan Magia couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Although she bought a lot of meat recently, she bought it all with Ling Yun's money, so she only cooked his portion. As for herself, all her money is used to buy food and snacks. She hasn't eaten meat for almost 5 days. Seeing Pan Magia's expression, Ling Yun asked, "Magia, when you cooked for me, did you count yours?" "Of course I didn't. The meat and grains were all bought with your money. How can I use them myself? You have treated me so well, how can I take advantage of you?" Pan Magia asked with wide eyes. Hearing her words, Ling Yun frowned and said, "I said before, you can use my money to buy whatever you want." She shook her head and said, "That's inappropriate." "Why?" he asked. Pan Magia lowered her head and said with a low voice, "Well, we are just friends and it's not appropriate for me to use your money. More importantly, you need to save money in case you find the woman you like. After all, getting married requires a lot of money." She didn't know what was wrong with her. Before, she could talk about this topic easily with her other male friends. But when she talks about this matter with Ling Yun, she feels uncomfortable and frustrated when she imagines him marrying another girl. Is she used to his kindness to her and doesn't want to lose this friend? At first, when he heard her say that he would marry another woman, Ling Yun was very unhappy and even a little depressed. But when he looked at her, he saw her unwillingness and bad mood. In an instant, his mood soared and his eyes shone. He took a deep breath to control his ecstasy and said, "You don't have to worry about this." Hearing his words, Pan Magia was stunned. Thinking of Sheng Xiaohong's words, she was depressed. She felt her heart being squeezed by an invisible hand, which was extremely uncomfortable and even painful. She held the bamboo basket tightly, controlled her emotions, and said, "Ah, I forgot that you already have someone you like." This time, it was Ling Yun's turn to be taken aback. He looked at her in surprise and asked, "You, how did you know?" Pan Magia bit her lip for a moment and said, "I found out not long ago. She came to me and asked me to keep a distance from you. Thinking about it, she might feel uncomfortable when her man gets very close to other girls." Ling Yun felt that her words were a bit strange and asked, "What are you talking about?" Pan Magia stopped walking, turned around and raised her head to look at him. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Brother Ling, I think we should keep some distance. After all, you already have someone, and it's not good if others keep gossiping about us." Hearing her words, Ling Yun's heart sank. He looked at her and asked, "Do you really think I'm that kind of man?" Without waiting for her to speak, he added, "Magia, I do have someone in my heart, but it's a pity that person doesn't know it at all and thinks I'm in love with another woman. I try every way I can to get her attention, and I don't hide my desire to get close to her, but she still wants to push me away. She even thinks that I am a man who already has someone he likes and can still get close to other women." Pan Magia was startled by his words and looked at him with wide eyes. "Brother Ling, you are the one I like, but it seems that my feelings are one-sided," Ling Yun said with a low voice. Pan Magia was shocked and couldn't believe her ears. The man in front of her is not only handsome and hard-working, but he is also very kind, gentle, polite, and generous. He's a wonderful man. How could he like an ordinary person like herself? Before she recovered from the shock, she heard him say, "Magia, I know you already have someone in your heart, so you don't have to be troubled by my feelings. This is my own problem and has nothing to do with you. You can treat me the same as before. I just hope you can at least give me a chance to treat you well and not push me away." Pan Magia didn't know what to say at this time. Her brain told her that it was impossible for her to fall in love with Ling Yun because she had been in love with Zyro Yiguan since she was 8 years old. She felt very comfortable with Zyro Yiguan and enjoyed his company, but her heart didn't beat faster even if he was around. She also won't blush even when he holds her hands. But every time she was with Ling Yun, she knew that her heartbeat would always speed up, and she would blush easily even if she looked at him for a while longer. She enjoyed his presence and company and thought of him almost every time. Although similar, she felt that her feelings for Ling Yun were different. But how can one person like 2 people at the same time? She was at a loss and couldn't understand what she was feeling at the moment. Does she really like Zyro Yiguan like a woman likes a man, or does she just like him as family? Without Ling Yun's comparison, she never realized that her feelings for Xiao Yiguan were different from her feelings for Ling Yun. She looked blankly at the man standing in front of her and murmured in a low voice, "Have I always misunderstood my feelings?" Hearing her muttering something, Ling Yun moved closer and asked, "What did you say?" Seeing his face suddenly so close to her, Pan Magia was captivated by his deep, affectionate gaze. Her mind went blank and she muttered as she blushed slightly, "You are so good-looking." Ling Yun was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. He came closer and lowered his voice deliberately. "It's great that you like it. Do you think my chances will be higher if I show you my muscles?" As soon as Pan Magia heard what Ling Yun said, her face turned redder, and the image of his bare chest appeared in her mind. She swore that she accidentally saw him cleaning his body in the river that day, and she didn't mean to peek at him at all. Seeing that her face was so red that even the tips of her ears were red, Ling Yun became bolder and finally reached out to touch her soft ears and asked in a hoarse voice, "What are you thinking about? Are you imagining my muscles now?" Pan Magia was startled by his words and waved her hands quickly while saying in panic, "No, no, no. I never expected to see you cleaning yourself in the river that day." As soon as she finished speaking, Ling Yun was stunned, and she quickly covered her mouth with her hand. He didn't expect her to actually think about his muscles. This girl becomes more interesting the more she interacts with him. No wonder Li Chenmo loves his young wife so much. A younger wife is indeed unbelievably cute. Ling Yun pinched Pan Magia's earlobe and said with a smile, "If you are curious, just ask and I will show it to you." What are you talking about, rogue?" After saying this, Pan Magia walked away quickly. Unfortunately, both are heading in the same direction. As she walked, she heard Ling Yun's laughter coming from behind, as he followed her closely behind. "How hateful," she said while pouting. She didn't expect him to act like a scoundrel, because she always thought he was a gentleman. Only now did she realize that he was a big bad wolf. He actually ate her tofu so openly, and she even let him do as he wished. Her brain must be filled with water. Seeing the girl's mind was now occupied by him alone, Ling Yun was in a good mood. It seems that the little girl still has him in her heart after all. He just hoped that their age gap wouldn't be an issue when he went to her parents' house to propose to her. After all, he was 30 years old, and she was only 20. Not long after, they finally arrived at Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu's home. Before knocking on the door, Pan Magia took a deep breath, calmed down, and patted her face several times. When she was ready, she knocked on the door. Ling Yun was amused by her behavior and couldn't help but chuckle. The next moment, he saw Pan Magia pouting and staring dagger at him. Seeing her coquettish behavior, his heart felt like it was being scratched by a kitten. Before he could eat her tofu again, the door was opened by Li Chenmo. Seeing them coming together, he raised his eyebrows but didn't ask. "You are here, come in, dinner is ready." He stepped aside to let them in and locked the door. Entering the living room, Lu Jiyu was already waiting for them. Seeing them coming together, she said, "Magia, brother Ling, you are here. Please sit down. Tonight I prepared some tonic wine." Pan Magia saw the dishes on the table and asked in surprise, "Jiyu, brother-in-law, are we celebrating something?" "This is the first time my husband invites his friends to dinner. I can't just cook a simple dish, right?" Lu Jiyu said with a smile. Pan Magia nodded and suddenly remembered the purpose of coming. She handed the bamboo basket over and said, "Jiyu, this is for you and your husband. I don't have anything valuable, so don't dislike it." Seeing this basket of dried mushrooms, Lu Jiyu was delighted and said, "It's such a good thing, how can I disdain it?" "Here, braised pork." Ling Yun handed the bamboo basket to Li Chenmo and sat down next to Pan Magia naturally. Seeing his actions, Lu Jiyu glanced at her friend and did not see any resistance. She smiled when she saw her friend blush. After she put away the mushrooms, they began to eat and drink tonic wine. Because Li Chenmo was there, Pan Magia still resisted devouring the food as usual. Even though she held back, she still ate as fast as a man. While others were eating and chatting, Pan Magia was concentrating on eating her own food. Because of this, she didn't notice that Ling Yun kept adding dishes to her bowl. Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu saw their interaction and looked at each other, wondering whether the gossip they heard about Pan Magia and that man was true or false. The dinner lasted for nearly 2 hours before Ling Yun and Pan Magia left happily. Lu Jiyu gave Ling Yun a jar of tonic wine and gave Pan Magia a basket of fruit slices to take back. After cleaning up, they locked the door and went to bed early. The next day, Lu Jiyu got up before dawn and went to check the chicken coop. As usual, the old hen defied the laws of nature and laid 5 eggs with 3 yolks inside. After placing the eggs in her space, she refilled the old hen's feeder and water. Afterward, she went to water the vegetable garden and peach tree and sweep the yard. After that, she went to the kitchen to light a fire. In fact, she prefers to cook in her own space, but it would arouse suspicion among neighbors if they discovered she never cooked. Therefore, she still cooks outside from time to avoid arousing suspicion. As soon as the day breaks, the villagers wake up one after another, and smoke comes out of the chimneys. Seeing this, Lu Jiu finished sweeping the yard, went to light a fire, and boiled a pot of water. When the rooster crows, Li Chenmo wakes up and goes to find his wife. Seeing his wife in the kitchen, he walked over and hugged her. Feeling the soft body in his arms, he said, "Wife, you smell so good." Lu Jiu was used to her husband's clinginess and asked, "Husband, do you want to go to my place?" She smiled at his lazy answer, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them disappeared from the kitchen and reappeared in her space. She patted his arms around her waist and said, "Husband, go take the shower first, then we can have breakfast together." "All right." After kissing his wife's earlobe, Li Chenmo went to take a shower while Lu Jiu prepared breakfast. For breakfast today, she prepared fried dough sticks, soy milk, chicken porridge, and scallion pancakes. Considering that her husband had a big appetite, she steamed some meat buns for him to eat later. When Li Chenmo finished taking a shower, he saw that breakfast had been prepared. He sat next to his wife and said, "Wife, we will finish plowing the fields today and will start planting after 2 days of rest. Should we go into the county town and take some photos?" Lu Jiu placed a bowl of porridge in front of her husband and said, "All right, we can also take our wedding photos. It would be nice if we put it in our bedroom." Hearing her words, Li Chenmo's eyes lit up and he smiled. "Then let's bring our wedding dresses and the new clothes you made before when we go take the photos." "All right," she nodded. After receiving his wife's confirmation, Li Chenmo was in a good mood and ate more than usual. After breakfast, they left the space. Appearing in the kitchen, Li Chenmo went to feed the piglets, while Lu Jiu turned off the fire and let the water cool down. She took out a few meat buns from the space, wrapped them in oil paper, and put them in a bamboo basket. Then, she filled the thermos with warm water and put it together with the meat buns. She also prepared some fruit slices for her husband. While waiting for her husband to come back from the pig pen, she filled the water tanks with water for her own space. After Li Chenmo came back, he washed his hands and feet, changed his clothes, and got ready to go to work. In the living room, Lu Jiu handed the bamboo basket to her husband and said, "Husband, I prepared meat buns for you. Eat them when you are hungry. I will bring you lunch later." "Thank you, wife." Li Chenmo took the bamboo basket, leaned over, and kissed her. After kissing for a while, he reluctantly stopped and whispered, "Don't be tired." "Don't worry, just be careful at work." After giving his wife another gentle kiss, Li Chenmo left home in a good mood. Lu Jiu locked the door and went to clean the house. She had little work to do, so after finishing the housework, she went into her own space to make some summer clothes for her husband and their family. In the county hospital, Zhao Siyu leaned on the pillow as she sat on the bed and looked out the window in a daze. Meanwhile, her mother scolded her while eating the meals prepared by the hospital for her. Mother Zhao swallowed the thick porridge, pointed at her nose and said, "What a jinx. After you married that loser, not only did you not bring any benefits to the family, but you also got this strange disease. Do you know how much we need to pay for your hospital bills? Just for this room, we have to pay 5 yuan a day. If your father hadn't spent all of our family savings, you wouldn't be able to stay in the hospital." Seeing that her daughter didn't even look at her, let alone respond to her words, Mother Zhao's dissatisfaction became even stronger. She said again, "Did you become stupid after sleeping for several days? Can't you even understand what I'm saying now?" Hearing her mother's words, Zhao Siyu finally turned to look at her and asked, "Mother, are you sure my hospitalization fee was paid by our family?" After listening to her words, Mother Zhao frowned and asked, "If it wasn't our family, who do you think would pay for the hospital bills? Do you think your father-in-law would bother to care about you? Did you see them when you woke up? Did any one of them come to see you?" Although she knew that the person who paid the hospital bills was Father Lei, she dared to take the credit because she was sure that they would not visit her daughter. She was aware of her daughter's attitude towards the Li family over the years. It was unexpected that Father Li was willing to pay for the hospital bills, so it would be a miracle if they were willing to visit her daughter. Seeing that her daughter did not dare to refute, Mother Zhao said, "You should go back to your home instead of spending money in the hospital. You can go back to work after a few days of rest." After saying that, she continued to eat. She needed to finish her meal faster in case the nurse came back. Zhao Siyu looked at her mother gobbling up the food, and looked at the cold coarse-grained steamed buns in her hand, and let out a self-deprecating chuckle. How stupid was she before to choose Li Chengshuan as her husband? How blind is she that she actually regards those who treated her well as bad people, and these blood-sucking monsters as her family? Only when she hit rock bottom and reached a desperate situation did she realize who was treating her well and who was just using her. She regretted everything she did, really regretted it. If she could turn back time, she swore that she would never have anything to do with Li Chengshuan and that she would pay off all the debts she owed to the Li family, whether it's money, food, or a debt of gratitude. But there are no ifs in this world. Feeling the numbing pain in her body, Zhao Siyu knew that her time was almost up for an unknown reason. She was tired. If only she could sleep for a while and stop listening to her mother's heart-piercing words. Maybe when she wakes up, everything will be fine. But after this sleep, will she wake up again? "Mother, I'm tired. I want to sleep for a while. Can you help me lie down?" she said weakly. Hearing her words, Mother Zhao felt unhappy, but she still put down the food tray and helped her lie down. After lying on the bed, Zhao Siyu said, "Mother, I thank you and Father for bringing me into this world and raising me up." Mother Zhao's heart skipped a beat after hearing her words, and she said with a frown, "What nonsense are you talking about? If you feel grateful, then bring back more food and money for our family. Don't just give me those empty words. I don't need it." Zhao Siyu smiled wearily and said, "If you meet the Li family, please tell my father-in-law, eldest brother, third brother, and my sisters-in-law that I am sorry for what I did to them, and thank you. The debt of gratitude I owe them, I can only repay it in the next life." Because her voice was getting weaker and weaker, Mother Zhao didn't hear the last few words, and only heard that she would pay back the Li family something she owed them. Seeing that her daughter had closed her eyes, she thought she was asleep, and said with displeasure, "What have they given you that you need to repay it? You are a white-eyed wolf. You only know how to be kind to others and forget about your own family. If I knew that you would become like this, I wouldn't bother giving birth to you." The moment Mother Zhao turned around and sat on the chair, Zhao Siyu exhaled her last breath. A teardrop slipped from the corner of her eye and disappeared when it touched the pillow. 2 hours later, the nurse walked into the ward with Zhao Siyu's medicine. When Mother Zhao saw her coming, she quickly stood up and said with a smile, "Comrade, my daughter is asleep and has finished her meal." Seeing the empty tray on the bedside table, the nurse nodded and said, "The patient needs to take her medicine." Mother Zhao nodded and said, "I'll wake her up." After that, Mother Zhao walked to the bed and was surprised to see the coarse grain bun in her daughter's hands. She thought her daughter had finished eating the bun. Fortunately, the nurse didn't notice. Otherwise, she would definitely be scolded if the nurse knew that she gave the hard bun to her sick daughter. She quickly reached out to pick up the bun, only to find that her daughter was holding it tightly. The nurse found Mother Zhao was pulling something from Zhao Siyu's hand, and she asked with a frown, "Comrade, what are you doing?" Mother Zhao was taken aback and said, "When I didn't pay attention, my daughter hid a coarse grain bun. I wanted to take it back, but she held it tightly." The nurse looked at Zhao Siyu's pale face and found that her eyelids were not moving at all. Under normal circumstances, even if a person is asleep, there will be movement in the eyelids, as if they are dreaming. What's more, with Mother Zhao's actions, she should have woken up, yet she still could continue to sleep peacefully. The nurse felt something was wrong and quickly came over to check her pulse. The nurse was startled when she touched her cold hand and quickly checked Zhao Siyu's breath. When she found that she was not breathing, she quickly pressed the red button on the bedside and performed CPR. Mother Zhao was surprised when she saw the nurse's actions and asked, "Comrade, what are you doing? What's wrong with my daughter?" The nurse continued with the CPR and asked angrily, "How did you take care of the patient? You didn't even notice that the patient had stopped breathing." Mother Zhao was stunned and exclaimed in surprise, "What did you say?" Not long after, Professor Zhang and several young doctors and nurses rushed into the ward. When Professor Zhang saw Zhao Siyu's condition, his heart sank. He stopped the nurse and said, "You can stop doing cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The patient has passed away." The nurse was stunned for a moment, lowered her head, and withdrew her hand from Zhao Siyu's chest. Professor Zhang examined Zhao Siyu's body and said, "The patient's death time was around 7 o'clock in the morning. It has been around 2 hours since she passed away." After saying this, he turned to look at Mother Zhao, who looked as if her soul had left her body, and said, "My condolences." Then he said to the young doctor, "Prepare the documents and send the body to a mortuary." "Yes, Professor." After giving his instructions, he shook his head and left the room. He wondered how the patient's husband would react if he returned only to find that his wife had died. As for the patient's mother, alas, he never thought there would be a mother who could treat her child like this. When Mother Zhao saw them covering her daughter with a piece of white cloth, she came to her senses, rushed forward, and snatched away the white cloth. She hugged Zhao Siyu's cold body and shouted, "What are you doing? My daughter just fell asleep." The nurse was angry with Mother Zhao at first, but her heart softened when she saw her like this. She held Mother Zhao's hand and said, "Comrade, we have to transfer your daughter to a mortuary, otherwise her body won't last long. I'm sorry for your loss." Mother Zhao withdrew her hand from the nurse and shook her head in denial. "My daughter is just sleeping. Yes, she needs to take medicine. Let me wake her up." Mother Zhao shook Zhao Siyu's body and said, "Siyu, wake up, it's time for you to take medicine. Come on, don't sleep anymore. Mother is wrong. Don't you like to lose your temper with your mother? As long as you wake up, Mother will listen to you." "Siyu, wake up, Mother begs you, all right." Mother Zhao kept shaking her daughter's body, trying to wake her up. But no matter what she said or how she shook her, her daughter still lay motionless on the bed. Seeing her daughter's relieved expression and the slight smile on her pale face, Mother Zhao finally cried out loud. After losing her daughter, Mother Zhao realized that her children were very important to her. At this moment, she felt like her heart was being cut by a dull knife. The pain was so unbearable, she would never see her daughter again. Thinking about everything her daughter had done before, Mother Zhao finally realized how good her daughter was to her and the Zhao family. How could she not notice it before and think her daughter was a bad child? Mother Zhao cried and hugged Zhao Siyu's body, begging Zhao Siyu for forgiveness. Seeing her like this, the young doctors and nurses had red eyes. Not long after, Mother Zhao fainted from grief and shock. Everyone was stunned. After confirming that she was okay, the nurses carried Mother Zhao to the empty bed and let her rest. Doctors and nurses moved Zhao Siyu's body to the mortuary and processed the documents. At the same time, they also called the production team's office to inform Father Li about Zhao Siyu's condition. In Zai village, the educated youth working in the office was surprised when he heard the news. "Okay, I'll go and inform the Li family right away. Thank you, comrade." After hanging up the phone, the educated youth went to Han Yuheng to inform him, and then he went to the east area to find Father Li. Everyone was curious when they saw him coming. This educated youth worked as a staff member in the production team and was the most promising bachelor after Li Chenmo married. When the educated youth stood on the roadside, he said, "Uncle Lei, can I chat with you for a while?" Father Li stopped what he was doing and turned to look at the educated youth. Seeing his anxious expression, Father Li hurriedly came over and asked, "Comrade, what's the matter?" The educated youth hesitated for a moment before he said, "Uncle Lei, your second daughter-in-law has passed away. I'm sorry for your loss." Father Li was stunned and looked at him in a daze for a moment before he finally registered his words. Thinking of what the doctor said at that time, he sighed and said, "Thank you, comrade, for informing me." The educated youth nodded and returned to the office. Father Li washed the dirt off his hands and feet and went to the central area to find Han Yuheng. When a family member dies, they can take a few days off to make funeral arrangements. Although superstitions have been banned, funeral rites can still be performed. In the central area, Father Li found Han Yuheng instructing the newly arrived educated youth on how to prepare soil for planting. Father Li walked up to him and said, "Team leader Han, can I talk to you?" Seeing Father Li, Han Yuheng nodded. He knew about Zhao Siyu, so he could guess what Father Li wanted to talk to him about. "Uncle Li, I heard about your second daughter-in-law's matter. My condolences," he said with a sigh. "You and your family can take a few days off. You can arrange the funeral arrangements with ease," he added. Father Li nodded and said, "Thank you, team leader Han." "Uncle Li, there is no need to be so polite to me. Our family has been friends for decades. This is what I should do," Han Yuheng said. After notifying Han Yuheng, Father Li went to the southern and eastern areas to notify his eldest son and his third son. When Li Chen's and Zhang Dongmei heard the news, they were stunned for a long time before they hurried home. While Li Chen's rushed to the hospital, Zhang Dongmei went to Li Chengxuan's house to make the funeral arrangements. But Li Chenmo was very calm. He even wondered what his second brother would do. Judging from the rumors he heard about Li Chengxuan, his second brother didn't seem to feel sad when he heard the news. The Li family took a few days off, and basically everyone in Zai village knew about Zhao Siyu. Normally, when someone in the village passes away, they will go over to help with the funeral. After the funeral, the family of the deceased will prepare a meal to thank them for their help. Therefore, after the neighbors heard the news, people close to the Li family took a day off to help Zhang Dongmei prepare the funeral venue. At the same time, when Li Chenmo arrived home, Lu Jiu had just come out of her own space and was preparing lunch in the kitchen. When she heard the front door open, she frowned and hurried out to check. Seeing her husband coming home so early, she asked in surprise, "Husband, why are you back so early? Are you feeling unwell?" Li Chenmo leaned over and kissed her while saying, "Zhao Siyu has passed away." "What did you say?" Lu Jiu asked in disbelief. Seeing his wife's shocked expression, Li Chenmo sighed and said, "She passed away this morning, so my brother, father and I need to go to the hospital to bring her body back for burial. The eldest sister-in-law has already gone to my second brother's house to prepare for the funeral venue." Lu Jiu still couldn't believe that Zhao Siyu passed away like this. This is a huge deviation from the plot. Could it be? After coming back to her senses, Lu Jiu pulled her husband into the bedroom and took out a can from the cabinet. She counted the money, handed a stack of coupons and 1,000 yuan to her husband, and said at the same time, "Husband, keep these money and coupons." Li Chenmo took the money and said, "I'm going to pick up my father and go to the hospital. It may take us a few hours to bring her back. I'm going to help the eldest sister-in-law. Be careful on the way," Lu Jiu reminded her husband. After kissing his wife, Li Chenmo rode his bicycle to pick up Father Lei and then went to the county hospital. Lu Jiu went to the kitchen, stored the food in her own space, and then went to the bedroom to change into dark-colored clothes. After that, she locked the door and went to Li Chengshuan's house. When she arrived, several people were already decorating the funeral venue. Seeing her coming, they nodded to her, expressed their condolences, and then continued working. When Lu Jiu entered the room, she saw Zhang Dongmei and several aunts cleaning up the room, and people were setting up tables and chairs outside. Zhang Dongmei saw her coming and said, "Third sister-in-law, you are here." "Eldest sister-in-law, is there anything I can help?" Lu Jiu asked. This was her first time helping with a funeral. In previous lives, these matters were handled by a professional team, and the family of the deceased only had to pay and perform the ceremony according to their instructions. Seeing her confusion, Zhang Dongmei said, "Third sister-in-law, we have to prepare snacks and tea for the guests later. Can I leave this matter to you?" When Lu Jiu heard this, she breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Eldest sister-in-law, don't worry, I can handle it." After receiving the task, Lu Jiu came to the backyard and saw that the kitchen was small and there was basically nothing in the jars. Thinking of Zhao Siyu's thin body, she sighed. No wonder her body was so weak when she didn't even have any food. The kitchen was full of dust and she needed to clean it before she could use it for cooking. She folded up her sleeves, picked up the broom and began to clean up the cobwebs and dust. Afterward, she wiped everything down with a rag. After half an hour, the kitchen was finally clean enough for her. She looked around and saw a medium-sized pot in the corner of the kitchen. Looking at the dirty pot, she wondered if Zhao Siyu had washed it after using it. Taking the pot to the backyard, she spent 10 minutes scrubbing it. Fortunately, she has good washing soap made in her own space. Otherwise, it might take her longer to clean the pot. Then she lit a fire and boiled water in a pot. But when the water boils, she sterilizes the pot with hot water and then throws away the water. Then she boiled another pot of water on the stove and cooked a pot of egg porridge in a brazier. It was almost lunchtime, and she didn't know if her husband had eaten. In the county town, Li Chenmo and Father Li had just arrived at the hospital. After questioning the nurse, they went to the mortuary. Before entering the mortuary, they heard Mother Zhao's shrill voice, "You can't take away my daughter." Aunt Zhao, Zhao Siyu, is the daughter-in-law of the Li family. She will be buried with the ancestors of the Li family, Li Chen's said with a hint of anger in his voice. Looking at the disheveled Mother Zhao in front of him, he couldn't help but think, if you really thought of her as your daughter, you wouldn't ask us to pay you to look after her. Now that she's gone, what good are these shows? It's not like we don't know how your family treated her. Mother Zhao was irritated by Li Chen's words and said, "Who is your family's daughter-in-law? When my daughter was in the hospital, why didn't I see your family come to visit her? Now that she is dead, you all come to claim a relationship. Don't you just want to make some money by organizing her funeral? In-laws, think twice before you speak. Is this what a mother would say about her daughter?" Father Li said coldly. Everyone in the Zhao family was stunned when they saw Father Li bringing Li Chenmo over. They thought the Li family just sent Li Chen's to pick up Zhao Siyu, but they didn't expect Father Li to come in person. Although Mother Zhao was afraid of Father Li and Li Chenmo, she was not willing to let them take away her daughter. The Zhao family raised her for 23 years, but she died after only marrying Li Chengshuan for 5 years. Logically speaking, they should be the ones holding the funeral. Mother Zhao's eyes darted around and said, No matter what, my family has raised her for 23 years, and your family has only raised her for 5 years. Therefore, we should hold the funeral. After hearing her words, Father Lee's face darkened and he said, "In-laws, your calculation is too unreasonable. From the moment your daughter married my second son and entered my family genealogy, she became a member of my Lee family." Before Mother Zhao could refute, he added, "While your family indeed raised her for 23 years, we have paid 300 yuan and a radio as her bride price. Doesn't that count as the Lee family paying back your money and effort for raising her? The bride price is a gift from your second son to my family because we are willing to marry our daughter to him. How can a mere 300 yuan and a radio be equal to our effort of raising her?" Zhao Siyu's eldest brother suddenly interrupted. Li Chenmo looked at him and said, "Since your family wants to calculate everything, then you shouldn't forget about the food, money, and coupons that my second sister-in-law gave you in the past 5 years. Not to mention the past, just last year, the food and money she gave to your family should total about 900 yuan. There are also hospitalization expenses, medicine expenses, and doctor's fees, a total of 1,300 yuan. The Li family will not say everything in detail. As long as you pay us 3,000 yuan, we will sever the family relationship and let you hold her funeral," he added coldly. When Mother Zhao heard this number, she became dizzy and almost fell to the ground. "Mother!" Fortunately, her sons and daughters-in-law managed to steady her. Otherwise, she might fall flat on her face. She covered her chest and pointed at Li Chenmo angrily, but because of her anger, she could only gasp and say, "You, shameless." Father Zhao stood on the side, looking at Zhao Siyu's bloodless face, and finally could no longer tolerate his wife's unreasonable demands. Before Mother Zhao could scold Li Chenmo, he shouted, "That's enough." Because of his sudden outburst, Mother Zhao and the rest of the Zhao family members were shocked. This was the first time they had seen him so angry. Mother Zhao looked at her husband and asked in disbelief, Are you just shouting at me?" Father Zhao pointed at her and said furiously, "Look at yourself. Are you worthy of being called mother? Is every word you say and every move you do for our daughter or for your own benefit?" Hearing her husband's words, Mother Zhao was so angry that she couldn't speak. She could only hold her painful chest and gasp. Seeing his wife almost fainting, Father Zhao had no sympathy for her at all. His anger only got worse and he said, "You keep saying that Siyu is your daughter. If you really regard her as your daughter, then why do you ask the Li family to give you food in order to take care of her? Why do you insist on not letting the Li family hold the funeral? Isn't it just for consolation money?" The whole room fell silent because of Father Zhao's questions. Looking at Mother Zhao's pale face, Father Zhao added, "The thing I regret most in my life is marrying you." When she heard her husband's words, Mother Zhao almost fainted and fell to the ground. While his sons and daughters-in-law were anxiously taking care of her, Father Zhao looked at his daughter again and said, "In-laws, I'm sorry for what happened. My daughter's funeral affairs will be left to you." Father Li sighed and said, "My parents-in-law, I'm sorry for you. You can leave this matter to me. The Li family will not treat your daughter badly. What should be done will be done, don't worry." Father Zhao nodded and finally stepped aside to let the hospital staff carry Zhao Siyu's body to the truck prepared outside. To bring her body back, the Li family rented a truck and paid a large sum of money for her hospitalization fee. Looking at their retreating figures, Father Zhao's eyes were red and tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. His vision was blurred by tears and he whispered softly, "Siyu, thank you for being my daughter. Father, have let you down." At the same time, on the train heading to the capital, Li Chengxuan was sleeping against the window. He frowned as he dreamed of his wife Zhao Siyu. In the dream, his wife stood opposite him and looked younger than him. It took him some time to realize that his wife looked exactly like she did when she was 17. Zhao Siyu looked at him with a smile and said softly, "Chengxuan, I have known about your infidelity for years, but I won't blame you. There is only ill-fate relationship between us, so let's not get entangled in the next life." Li Chengxuan was stunned by her words and reached out to hold her hands, but he couldn't move at all no matter how hard he tried. When he saw a light suddenly appear behind her, he panicked and said, "Siyu, you know that the one I love is you. They are just a mistake." Zhao Siyu shook her head and said with a smile, "The person you love is Zhao Siyu who chose you over Li Chenmo, not the real me. Chengxuan, I'm tired of all of this. Both of us have made many mistakes before, but you still have a chance to go back and change for the better. Chengxuan, don't go down this road any further." As the light grew brighter, Zhao Siyu took one last look at him and said, "It's time for me to go. Farewell, Chengxuan." After she finished her words, she turned around and walked calmly towards the light. Watching her walk towards the light, Li Chengshuan felt that something important to him had been taken away. As he struggled to move forward, he shouted, "See you, where are you going? Please don't go, I beg you." With tears streaming down his face, he crawled toward her desperately, but his feet seemed to be stuck to the ground and he couldn't move at all. When he saw her disappear into the light, he shouted, "No." The next moment his eyes opened suddenly. He stared blankly at the train's ceiling. After a while he came back to his senses and looked around. Seeing everyone looking at him, he apologized quickly and sat with his head lowered. Recalling the dream just now, he felt an ominous premonition in his heart. He put his hand over his heart and said to himself, "I must be too tired, this is just a dream." In Zai village, with the help of villagers, the funeral venue was set up in less than 3 hours. When Father Li and others arrived at the entrance of the village, the hospital staff stopped the truck because the village roads were not suitable for cars. After they took Zhao Siyu's body off the truck, the hospital staff said, "Comrade, this road is not suitable for cars. We can only send you until here." "Comrade, thank you for your help. This is a little gift for good luck, please accept it," Father Li said as he handed an envelope to the hospital staff. The hospital staff accepted the gift and said, "Then we will take my leave now." After the medical truck left, Father Li walked to Li Chengshuan's house, followed by Li Chenmo and Li Chen's who were carrying the coffin. Fortunately, both of them were very strong and could carry the coffin without any problem. But despite their strength and strong bodies, they were still sweating profusely when they arrived at Li Chengshuan's house. The villagers saw them coming and hurried over to help them carry the coffin. Since the coffin could not touch the ground, they placed several benches under the coffin. Afterwards, they set up a table. A wooden table with Zhao Siyu's name written on it was placed there. Since there is no photo of her, only her name will be used. Although they can hold funerals as before, they are prohibited from using paper money or other items related to superstition. So in front of the wooden tablet, there was only a cup of tea. When everything was ready, Li Chenmo came to the kitchen and found his wife and Pan Magia were busy making steamed buns and some soup. Hearing the familiar footsteps, Lu Jiu turned around and saw her husband. She quickly wiped her hands, walked over and said, "Husband, you are back, have you eaten?" Li Chenmo shook his head and said pitifully, "Wife, I'm hungry." When she heard that her husband was hungry and saw his forehead was covered with sweat, Lu Jiu felt heartache for him. She used her handkerchief to wipe his sweat and said, "Wait for me, I will make some noodles for you." Before she could go to the kitchen again, he took her hand, wiped the sweat and flour off her face and said, "Don't bother, just give me some steamed buns." Lu Jiu thought for a while and said, "There is some porridge left in the pot, I'll fry some eggs for you." After a brief conversation, Lu Jiu returned to the kitchen, while Li Chenmo went outside to help. Lu Jiu rummaged through the bamboo basket and took out 2 eggs from the space. She took out this basket when she was alone. With this bamboo basket, it is more convenient for her to take out the things in the space. After she took 2 eggs, she took a bowl from the cabinet and broke the eggs. Because the egg has 3 yolks, she couldn't let Pan Magia see it. So she blocked Pan Magia's view with her body, quickly broke the eggs, and then put in the green onions and some vegetables. Pan Magia saw her beating eggs and asked, "Jiu, are you going to make steamed eggs for your husband?" Lu Jiu poured some oil into the pot and said, "No, I'll make him an omelette." Seeing her generosity in using oil and seasonings, Pan Magia clicked her tongue and said, "You treat your husband so well." Lu Jiu smiled when she heard this and said, "If I didn't treat him well, who would? More importantly, he treats me better than I treat him." Pan Magia rolled her eyes at her and said in a joking tone, "Yes, yes, yes, your husband is the best." Lu Jiu chuckled lightly when she heard her teasing. It was nice to have her friend with her at the moment. Although she didn't like Zhao Siyu, she still felt uncomfortable and sad about her sudden death. While Pan Magia didn't say anything to comfort her, she could feel her care and worry as she came over the moment she heard the news. Lu Jiu felt better after hearing her occasional jokes. After a while, she finished the omelette and put it on the plate. She took a few steamed buns, scooped a bowl of egg porridge and put them together in a tray. When she brought out the food and a glass of warm tea, she saw Li Chen's and Father Li were chatting with her husband. She looked at them awkwardly, having forgotten about them as she had only made an omelette for her husband. Father Li and Li Chen's both glanced at the omelette, swallowed their saliva, and just smiled at her without saying anything. Li Chenmo saw her embarrassment and said, "Wife, can you help me get some more steamed buns for my father and elder brother?" "Oh's okay." Lu Jiu quickly handed the tray and glass to her husband and went to get more food for her father-in-law and brother-in-law. Seeing the omelette, Li Chen said, Third brother, the eggs look delicious. After hearing what he said, Li Chenmo smiled and said, Father, brother, I'm going to help my wife. After saying that, he went to the kitchen and saw his wife making an omelette. Because Pan Major was also there, he did not hug his wife as usual but just stood beside her. He came closer and whispered, Wife, is there anything I can help you with? Lu Jiu felt his hot breath brushing her ear and couldn't help but blush. She glanced at Pan Major and saw that she was making steamed buns with vegetable fillings with her head lowered like a robot. She shyly nudged her husband with her elbow and whispered, Shouldn't you be accompanying your father or the guests? Li Chenmo looked in the direction of Pan Major and saw that she didn't peek at them at all, and he nodded satisfiedly. He couldn't hold himself back, leaned over and kissed his wife's lovely earlobe, and said, There are not many guests now, and my sister-in-law is accompanying the guest. I will go to help later. Okay, Lu Jiu moved closer to him. Lu Jiu was used to their intimacy, and found that the rules of this era were so annoying that she could not hug her husband as she wanted. She misses him. Noticing his wife's little movements, Li Chenmo raised the corner of his lips and kissed her gently again. While the two of them were enjoying their own world, Pan Major was wailing in her heart. Because of them, she didn't even dare to look to the side, for fear of seeing something she shouldn't see. Although she was happy that her friend had married a good man, she couldn't help but complain. Brother-in-law, can you hold back and hug your wife when you are alone? Maintaining my posture like this for a long time, my neck is so sore. Fortunately, it didn't take long for Lu Jiu to prepare the meal, so she was not fed dog food for a long time. Pan Major breathed a sigh of relief when Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu left the kitchen to eat. Finally free to look around, she wrapped her buns while flexing her sore neck. Not long after she heard someone coming. She thought it was Lu Jiu, so she asked, Jiu, should we steam all the buns or just half of it? When she turned to look at the door, she found Ling Yun standing at the door looking at her, thinking of their conversation yesterday. Pan Major felt a little embarrassed and asked, Brother Ling, do you need anything? Ling Yun looked at her and asked, Can you give me a glass of water? Seeing that his clothes were soaked with sweat, she nodded and asked, Have you eaten? We prepared a lot of steamed buns and some porridge. Do you want some? Ling Yun said, his eyes following her every move as if he wanted to graft her figure into his mind. Feeling his burning eyes on her back, Pan Major became nervous for no reason and her heart beat fast. After a brief conversation, the room fell into silence. Pan Major handed him a bowl of porridge, 3 steamed buns, and a cup of warm tea. When she thought that Ling Yun might bring up yesterday's topic, or at least stay a little longer, she heard him say, Thank you. Taking the food and tea from her hand, Ling Yun turned around and left the kitchen without hesitation. Pan Major was surprised to see him leaving like this. She looked at his back blankly. Thinking of what she said to him, she felt uneasy in her heart. He won't really alienate me, will he? She muttered in a low voice. Suddenly, she patted her cheek and scolded herself. Pan Major, you shouldn't be like this. It was you who wanted to keep your distance from him. Since he fulfilled your wish, you should be happy. After a while, she put her hands down, placed them on her heart, and muttered with a frown, But why does it hurt so much here? While she was lost in thought, Ling Yun stood by the window and looked at her with burning gazes. He clenched his fists and said in a low voice, It seems that what Zyro Li said is right. He stood there for a long time, and he didn't leave until he saw Pan Major walking out of the kitchen. When the sun went down and the villagers finished their work, they returned home to take a shower and change clothes, and then went to Li Chengxuan's home to pay their last respects to Zhao Siyu and express condolences to the family of the deceased. After the sky darkened, the Lu family came over with several braziers. Although spring has arrived, the weather is still cold at night. Since the tables are placed outside, the Li family needs many braziers to keep their guests warm, so they lent the brazier to the Li family. Seeing them coming, Father Li walked over and said, Brother Lu, thank you for coming. Brother Li, my deepest condolences, Father Lu said, patting Father Li on the shoulder. They have been friends for decades and their relationship is like blood brothers. Looking at Father Li's haggard face, Father Lu sighed and said, Brother Li, if you need any help, just ask. Father Li nodded and invited them in. Brother Lu, please come in. Father Lu, Mother Lu, and the rest of the Lu family bowed to the coffin and put some money in the box next to it. The box contains condolence money that will later be used to pay for funeral expenses. After saying a few words of condolences to the Li family, they went out and took a seat. When Li Chenmo came out of the kitchen with a pot of hot tea, he saw the Lu family sitting by the wall. He quickened his pace and walked over. When he arrived at their table, he said, "Father, mother, brothers, sisters-in-law, thank you for coming." Father Lu nodded to him, and Mother Lu said, "Son-in-law, you will be busy these days. Remember to take care of your own health." Hearing her words of concern, Li Chenmo nodded and said, "Mother, I will take good care of Jiyu and myself." Not long after, Lu Jiyu came over, carrying a plate of snacks and a pot of tea. Seeing his wife holding the heavy kettle, Li Chenmo quickly took it from her hand and frowned. "Wife, leave this kind of work to me. What should I do if you get hurt?" "I'm not that fragile," Lu Jiyu said with a smile, but she still let him take away the tray and kettle in her hands. She turned to look at her family and asked, "Father, mother, have you eaten? We prepared some steamed buns." Wang Muxiao's eyes lit up when she heard that there were steamed buns to eat, but seeing Mother Lu's warning look, she swallowed her words back and said, "Jiyu, we come after dinner." Lu Jiyu was startled by her words. She knew very well that the second sister-in-law would never refuse a meal, especially if it was free. Therefore, she didn't expect that she would actually reject her offer. "Jiyu, if you need help, you must tell us. Don't tire yourself," Lu Han said. "Elder brother, thank you, but there is no need to trouble you and our family. The Li family's relatives are all helping, so we have enough manpower," Li Chenmo said with a smile. Wang Muxiao looked around and suddenly asked, "Jiyu, why don't I see your second brother-in-law? His wife passed away and he hasn't come back yet." Everyone was stunned when they heard her question. This kind of question is not suitable to be asked directly. As the husband of the deceased, Li Chengxun was not present. This situation is absolutely outrageous and can be said to be a shameful thing. Wang Muxiao might offend Li Chenmo as she asked this in front of him. Mother Lu was worried that her son-in-law would be angry, so she looked at Wang Muxiao and said, "If you don't speak, others will not think you are mute." After hearing what her mother-in-law said, Wang Muxiao realized that something was wrong with her words and quickly said, "Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for talking nonsense without thinking." In fact, Li Chenmo didn't feel offended at all. For him, it is normal for others to talk about his second brother. After all, even he himself felt that his second brother's behavior was outrageous. But he couldn't criticize his brother openly, so he could only say, "Second sister-in-law, I don't blame you." Lu Jiyu knew what her husband was thinking, but she also understood what her family was worried about. In order to lighten the atmosphere, she said, "Husband, can you help me take out the steamed buns from the kitchen?" "All right." After he left, Lu Cheng finally couldn't hold it anymore and asked, "Wife, why do you seem to become more stupid every time you get pregnant? You must think twice before speaking, otherwise, you may offend everyone unknowingly." Wang Muxia was irritated by her husband's words. She pinched his thigh and asked, "Am I not pregnant with your child? How dare you look down on me and call me stupid?" Being pinched by his wife on his thigh, Lu Cheng hissed, "Hiss, wife, be gentle. You will peel off my skin if you pinch me like this." Seeing her husband's pain, Wang Muxiao stopped pinching him and snorted, "Let's see if you still dare to look down on me. I'm going to pinch your skin off." Lu Cheng rubbed his thigh and murmured in a low voice, "If I lose a layer of skin, wouldn't you be the one who feels the most heartache?" Wang Muxiao squinted her eyes and asked, "What did you say?" Lu Cheng's survival instinct kicked in immediately, and he said, "Wife, I say you are so beautiful." Wang Muxiao rolled her eyes at him and snorted. Seeing the second branch behave like this in public, the Lu family shook their heads helplessly. No matter how much Mother Lu scolds them, they will never change. Lu Jiyu was amused by them and chuckled. She found that there were more guests, so she said, "Father, mother, I need to go help my sister-in-law, and I can't accompany you for the time being." Father Lu nodded and said, "It's all right, you can go and do your business." After a brief conversation with her family, Lu Jiyu returned to the kitchen and was too busy to leave the kitchen for the whole night. Although Pan Magia, Ling Yun, and relatives of the Li family are all helping, they can only rest near midnight. Generally, the person who must keep vigil is the descendant or husband of the deceased. But since Zhao Siyu had no children and her husband was missing, the first person to watch the night was Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu. While they were busy organizing the funeral, Li Chengxuan finally arrived in the capital after a 30-hour journey. Standing in front of the government office building, he held Professor Zhang's recommendation letter tightly. After making sure he had all the necessary documents with him, he entered the building and went to the counter to get his queue number. Unlike in the county where you can go to one department for everything, in the capital you need to go to a specific department. Because he came late, he had to wait for several hours before it was his turn and felt irritated. When he thought about how much money he could get, the annoyance of waiting for a long time suddenly eased a little. He stood in front of the counter and said, "Hello, comrade, I'm here to apply for the donation program." The officer heard his purpose and looked at him with displeasure. The donation program has just been established, and many people have already come to get money, while this gave the government a good reputation. It also cost them a lot of money. Due to political instability in the capital, corruption is common. Unless the person coming has a recommendation letter from a big shot, officials will give them up to 50% of the donations allocated to them and embellish the rest. "Did you bring the recommendation letter?" the officer asked. Li Chengshuan felt happy and quickly handed the letter over and said, "Yes, this is Professor Zhang's recommendation letter." When the police officer heard Professor Zhang's name, he paused, quickly tore off the envelope, and read the name signed at the bottom of the letter. When he confirmed that the person who signed the letter was indeed the person he had in mind, the way he looked at Li Chengshuan suddenly changed. As one of the top government officials and a famous doctor, many of Professor Zhang's students hold important positions in the government. If he can personally recommend this person must have some connection with him. After coming to a conclusion, the officer stood up and said with a smile, "Comrade, please wait a moment. I will handle the procedures as fast as possible." "Thank you, comrade," Li Chengshuan said with a smile. An hour later, the officer came back with a thick envelope and a piece of paper. He put the documents and envelope on the counter and said, "Comrade, here is your money and letter of recommendation. Please give my regards to Professor Zhang." Although Li Chengshuan didn't understand why the officer asked that, he still nodded and said, "All right, thank you, comrade." Before leaving the government office, Li Chengshuan hid the envelope in his clothes and patted it with satisfaction. He didn't know that there was a group of people watching him behind the pillar. As he left the building, the men followed him while keeping their distance. Not knowing the danger lurking behind him, Li Chengshuan was already thinking about what to do with the money he just received. The first thing he had to do was to sever blood ties with the Li family, pack his bags, and leave the small village. Then he will buy a house in the county town and propose to Yanyan's family. When he walked to a place with fewer pedestrians, the people following him looked at each other and nodded. One of them took out the dagger hidden in his waist and closed the distance with Li Chengshuan. Just before he stabbed the dagger into his back, he heard someone shout, "Comrade, please wait." The man was disturbed, so he hid the dagger and walked away as if nothing had happened. When he walked past Li Chengshuan, he gritted his teeth and looked at him coldly. As for the man's accomplices, they saw the one calling was an officer, and he didn't come alone, so they dispersed one after another. Not knowing that he had just escaped a disaster, Li Chengshuan looked at the officers in front of him and asked, "Comrade, what's wrong?" The officer handed him several envelopes and said with a smile, "Comrade, can you give these to Professor Zhang?" Li Chengshuan took the envelope and found that it looked very old. He couldn't help but say, "Comrade, these letters." "Comrade, let me be honest with you. We have sent this letter before, but Professor Zhang rejected it. This is a very important letter, so we can only ask for your help because you know Professor Zhang," one officer said with a smile. Hearing his words, Li Chengshuan fell silent. It seemed that Professor Zhang would be unhappy if he gave these letters to him. Judging from the police's attitude towards Professor Zhang, he seems to be a person with high authority. It would be good for his future if he could have a connection with him. Seeing that he neither agreed nor refused, the officers became anxious and quickly added, "How about we send you back to your town to express our gratitude? In this way, you can save money and time." If the officer sent him back, the chances of him being robbed along the way were next to zero. As for these letters, he would see what happened in the future. After considering the pros and cons, he nodded and said, "Then I'll thank you first, comrade." The officers breathed a sigh of relief, and one of them said, "I have brought you some specialties of the capital. You can share them with your family later." "I also brought some for you." Another officer also handed over the gift. Seeing so many officers flattering him, Li Chengshuan felt very proud. When he received their gifts, he thought, "So this is what it feels like when you have power. What a great feeling." Afterward, he went to the inn to check out, took his luggage, and was sent to the county town by an officer. Since they travel by car, it is more comfortable and faster than traveling on crowded trains. When he arrived in the county town the next day, he did not go to the hospital but went to the room he rented. He took out the envelope and counted the money with trembling hands. 8,500 yuan. They actually gave me so much money. Ha ha ha, I'm rich now, he smiled excitedly. He was afraid that the neighbors would hear him, so he quickly covered his mouth. Luckily it was daytime, and most people living in the area were at work, so no one heard him. After putting the money back in the envelope, Li Chengxuan used a spoon to take out a brick from the wall behind the cabinet. He took out the envelope from the wall and put the brick back. The money in the envelope was money he had embezzled from the factory over the years. Including the money he just received, he has a total of 9,800 yuan. With this money, he can live a good life even in the city. Because there was too much money, he was not comfortable hiding it in a rented house. After much deliberation, he still felt that it would be safer to carry money with him wherever he went. After putting the envelope into his bag, he took a shower and changed his dirty clothes before going to Zai village. Now that his household register has been separated from the Li family, if he wants to sever the relationship, he only needs to inform the elders in the village and the Li family. At the same time in Zai village, the elders of the Li family gathered in the front yard to discuss Zhao Siyu's funeral. Third nephew, since your second son is not here, it is up to you to decide the funeral. Generally speaking, we bury the deceased on the third day, but the weather is getting warmer, so let's bury her today, an elder suggested. Father Li's second brother nodded and said, "Third brother, I agree with uncle, it's best to do it today. If you wait any longer, her body will start to stink." Father Li wanted to wait for his second son to come back first. At the very least, he should see his wife for the last time, but due to the weather, they couldn't wait any longer. Otherwise, the body will begin to decay. After thinking for a long time, Father Li finally nodded and sighed, "Then let's follow everyone's suggestions." After hearing his words, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. While the body had not decayed yet, they should have buried it. After reaching an agreement, everyone acted quickly and notified the production team leaders and the elderly in the village. After receiving the brigade's approval, villagers volunteered to carry the coffin. The cemetery is located in a desolate area on a mountain. The villagers were worried about wild animals, so they carried some weapons with them. This was the first time for Lu Jiyu to come to this side of the mountain, because the other side of the mountain was far away from the village. This time, Li Chenmo did not help carry the coffin, but focused on taking care of his wife. Due to the difficult terrain, no women except family members participated in the procession. As they walked, Li Chenmo held Lu Jiyu's hand tightly and said, "Wife, be careful. Just hold on to me and walk slowly." Lu Jiyu nodded and held her husband's arm obediently. The villagers didn't say anything when they saw them behaving intimately. After all, it is impossible for a woman to cross the mountain without the support of her husband. It took them more than 2 hours to finally reach the cemetery. When Lu Jiyu saw the grassland in front of her, she was stunned. The cemetery is located at a higher altitude, but the wind is not strong and the flowers and plants are dense. From here you can clearly see the blue sky and Zai village. Although it is beautiful here, no one dares to walk around carelessly because this is the resting place of their ancestors. They walked in silence and with great respect. When they arrived at the Li family ancestors' burial site, they placed 2 benches on the ground and placed the coffin on them. Then people started digging. Zhao Siyu was placed at the outer layer as the daughter-in-law. There is an empty space next to her, which is reserved for Li Chengxuan. Seeing his wife looking at the grave with great interest, Li Chenmo came closer and whispered, "Wife, we also have a place here. After we die, we will be buried together." Lu Jiyu was surprised to find that there was also a place for her and her husband here, and couldn't help but ask curiously, "What if I die first and you marry again? Will you be buried with me or with your second wife?" When Li Chenmo heard his wife's words, his face darkened and he said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I will only marry you as my wife in this life, and you will not die." Lu Jiyu was stunned and said, "Husband, everyone is mortal including me. We will die one day." Li Chenmo was silent for a moment and said, "Then you won't die alone. The moment you die, I will follow you. Even if we are not born in the same year, the same month, and the same day, we will die in the same year, the same month, and the same day." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a deafening thunderclap, and everyone was startled. Lu Jiyu was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Did God take what her husband just said as an oath? Looking up and seeing the blue sky, she felt chills running down her spine. How could there be such a loud thunder in such a clear sky? Because of the sudden thunder, the villagers were frightened and sped up their actions. In less than an hour, they completed the burial and left the cemetery. Although it took them more than 2 hours to reach the cemetery, it only took an hour to get back to the village. When everyone arrived at the entrance of Zai village, Father Li said, "Thank you for your help today. We will prepare a meal to thank you. Please come over later." Everyone nodded, and after chatting for a while, they went home. The meals will be served at Li Chengxuan's home because they can be used to wash away bad luck. At the same time, the Li family also wants to thank everyone for their help at the funeral. Before leaving, Father Li looked at Zhang Dongmei and Lu Jiyu and said, "You have worked hard, but please persist a little longer." Zhang Dongmei understood what Father Li meant and said, "Father, don't worry. I have already notified the neighbors and they will come over to help us prepare meals. Then I'll leave this matter to you and Jiyu." After speaking, Father Li handed some money and coupons to Li Chen's and said, "Eldest son, go buy more meat and grain. We should provide at least one meat dish." Seeing this, Lu Jiyu said, "Father, if we go to buy ingredients now, we won't have time to cook. How about we use the ingredients I have here first?" Zhang Dongmei calculated the time and added, "Third sister-in-law is right. We only have a few hours to prepare 5 tables of food. If we buy ingredients now, it will be too late." After thinking for a while, Father Li finally nodded and said, "Then let's use your materials first. Third brother, take these. Tomorrow you go buy meat and food to pay for the materials we use today." Li Chen's handed over the money and coupons. Li Chenmo didn't say anything more and accepted the money and coupons. They will treat it as payment for raw materials. When Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu went to their house to get ingredients, Father Li, Li Chen's, and Zhang Dongmei went to Li Chengxuan's house to clean up the room and dismantle the morning hall. At the same time, Li Chengxuan stood at the door, looking at the morning hall with wide eyes and the names written on the wooden table. He staggered to the wooden tablet and muttered, "Impossible, how could this happen? Didn't the doctor say she still has time?" Li Chengxuan reached out and took the wooden tablet, looking at it in disbelief. His wife Zhao Siyu's name is written on the wooden tablet. Looking at it, he remembered his dream and his hand tightened. "This must be a lie, Siyu will never leave me." Just when he was still denying the fact, he heard his father's voice, "You are finally willing to come back." He was startled, but when he turned around he saw his father's calm expression. He looked at the expressions of his brother and sister-in-law and found that they looked at him strangely. Li Chengxuan held the wooden tablet tightly and asked, "Father, what's going on? Why did you put these things in my house?" Father Li looked at him for a while and asked with a sigh, "Second son, do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know?" "Father, what do you mean?" Li Chengxuan asked, a bad feeling rising in his heart. "Your wife passed away yesterday morning, and we just came back from the cemetery," Father Li explained. "Impossible, father, stop joking. My wife is still in the hospital," Li Chengxuan said with a hint of anger. Hearing this, Zhang Dongmei frowned and asked, "Second brother, where have you been these 2 days?" Hearing Zhang Dongmei's question, Li Chengxuan did not dare to look at his father and brother. Although the donation was for Zhao Siyu's medical treatment, he never intended to use all of it on her. Therefore, he must not tell his family about his trip to the capital. After a while he said, "I went to the city on a business trip and just came back." Zhang Dongmei frowned deeper and asked again, "In other words, you came here without even going to the hospital?" Feeling cornered by the question, Li Chengxuan started to panic and said, "Sister-in-law, stop changing the topic. I'm talking with my father. Who do you think you are to keep intervening?" When Li Chen's heard his second brother's rude words to his wife, his face darkened and he said, "Li Chengxuan, pay attention to your tone when you talk to your sister-in-law. Apologize to your sister-in-law." With Li Chen's warning, Li Chengxuan's momentum weakened. Although he was reluctant, he still said, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry." Now that she had apologized, Zhang Dongmei didn't want to prolong the matter anymore and said, "Second brother, we didn't lie to you. The hospital has even issued a death certificate." "Impossible, sister-in-law, even if you don't like my wife, how can you curse her like this?" Li Chengxuan still couldn't believe that his wife was dead. Father Li sighed and said, "Second son, come with me." Li Chengxuan saw Father Li entering his bedroom and followed him. In the room, Father Li opened the cabinet, took out an envelope, handed it to him, and said at the same time, "This is your wife's death certificate and medical report. Father knows that it is difficult for you to accept this news, but we did not lie to you." Li Chengxuan took out the document from the envelope and read it with red eyes. Although he didn't understand many words, he could still understand the word deceased next to Zhao Siyu's name. His hands were trembling as he asked, "Why didn't you wait for me to come back?" "At first we want to wait for you. However, we don't know where you are going or when you will come back, and since the weather is getting warmer, we can't wait any longer. Before her body started to decay, we decided to bury her today," Father Li sighed. Although he understood what his father said, Li Chengxuan couldn't accept it at all. He is Zhao Siyu's husband. How could they decide on her funeral without waiting for him? He held the death certificate tightly, crumpled it into a ball, and asked through gritted teeth, "Father, do you ever regard me as your son?" Father Li frowned and said, "What foolish thing are you asking? Of course you are my son." Hearing his answer, Li Chengxuan was furious and shouted, "If I am your son, why do you always look down on me? Siyu is my wife, how can you decide everything without asking me? Have you considered my feelings and dignity? I don't even know where you are, how do you want me to ask you? Haven't you thought about your wife? Her body is showing signs of decay." Father Li asked him back. "Excuse, all of that is just your excuse. You must hate me for being different from my brothers, right? So every time you see me, you always look down on me and look at me judgmentally." Li Chengxuan shouted and swept away everything on the table. Father Li was surprised by his outburst and felt his chest tightened. He frowned while he clutched at his heart and looked at his son with a pale face. Hearing the noise coming from the bedroom, Li Chen's rushed over and shouted, "Second brother, what are you doing?" Seeing his arrival, the hatred and jealousy in Li Chengxuan's heart became even stronger, and he shouted angrily, "What am I doing? I want to sever ties with all of you. I've had enough of your arrogance." Father Li staggered back a few steps, sat on the Kang bed, and looked at his second son in disbelief. He pointed at him with trembling hands and said angrily, "What did you say? Say what you said again." Li Chengxuan turned to look at Father Li and snorted coldly. There was obvious hatred and contempt in his tone, and he said coldly, "I said, I want to sever ties with the Li family. From today on, we will have nothing to do with each other." Before anyone could speak, he added, "Since you look down on me and hate me, there is no need for me to stay in this family. I will leave and never appear in front of you again." As Li Chengxuan turned to leave, his cloth bag was scratched and torn by a protruding nail. The envelope placed at the bottom of the bag fell to the ground and was kicked by him accidentally. No one noticed the envelope under the cabinet since everyone was looking at Li Chengxuan in disbelief. Father Li looked at his second son's retreating back angrily and said, "Second son, if you leave today, I will treat it as if I never have you as my son." Li Chengxuan paused for a moment, clenched his fists tightly, then left without hesitation. He has money now and no need to stay in this family anymore. It would be better to cut off the relationship sooner rather than let them take his money later. The moment Li Chengxuan stepped out of the house, Father Li almost fainted due to anger. Seeing his almost collapse, Li Chen's hurriedly caught him and exclaimed in surprise, "Father." Zhang Dongmei was stunned when she saw this. She didn't expect that her second brother would really break off their family relationship. She quickly walked into the room and supported her father-in-law. Zhang Dongmei saw Father Li holding his chest with a pale face and said in panic, "Husband, go get a doctor quickly." After hearing his wife's words, Li Chen's bent down and said, "Wife, help father get on my back. It was faster to take him to see a doctor." With that said, she quickly helped Father Li lie on top of her husband. Immediately afterward, Li Chen stood up and ran to find Dr. Zai. Zhang Dongmei panicked, quickly closed the door and chased after them. The villagers were surprised when they saw Li Chen's carrying Father Li on his back. They wanted to know what was going on. They had just met with Father Li not long ago, and he was fine. Out of curiosity, some people quickly followed Li Chen's. At the same time, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu didn't know what happened to Father Li and had just arrived at Li Chengxuan's house. When Li Chenmo went to the kitchen to place ingredients, Lu Jiyu entered the house. Seeing that the house was empty and the morning hall had not yet been disassembled, she walked to the bedroom and was surprised to see the room in a mess. Seeing that the cabinet was unstable and might collapse at any time, she went to fix it. As she pushed the cabinet back against the wall, she saw what looked like an envelope in the corner. She thought it might be Zhao Siyu's death certificate, so she picked it up. But when she noticed how thick the envelope was, she knew it wasn't a death certificate. Out of curiosity, she opened the envelope. When she saw the thick stack of money inside, her eyes widened in surprise. Since this envelope was found in Li Chengxuan's home, it is probably his or Father Li's. Since there was too much money, she put it in her own space and planned to hand it to Father Li later. As soon as Li Chenmo came out of the backyard, a little boy pushed open the gate. He frowned when he saw a little boy running into the house frantically. Dong Li saw him and said breathlessly, "Uncle Lei, come with me to Dr. Zai's house. Grandpa Li has fainted." As soon as Li Chenmo heard his words, his heart sank. At the same time, Lu Jiu also walked out after hearing Dong Li's words. Without wasting any more time, Lu Jiu picked Dong Li up and placed him on her lap as she sat on the back seat of the bicycle. "Wife, hold on me tightly." After his wife held his waist, Li Chenmo rode his bicycle to Dr. Zai's house. When they arrived, there were already many villagers and relatives of the Li family. The ominous premonition in his heart became stronger and stronger. After parking their bicycles, the two rushed into the house. Seeing the solemn expressions on everyone's faces, Lu Jiu thought of the worst possibility. "Dr. Zai, how is my father?" Li Chenmo asked. Looking at him and everyone sitting in the living room, Dr. Zai's face turned darker than Judge Bao's and said, "Your father's health is unstable because of his emotional instability. After 3 days of drinking the medicine, he will be fine." Hearing his words, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu breathed a sigh of relief. After their initial worries disappeared, Lu Jiu looked at everyone and asked, "What's going on?" The next moment, Dr. Zai snorted and said, "How do I know? Just pay me, take them away, and don't disturb my rest." Everyone looked embarrassed when they heard his words. Father Li's second brother stood up and said, "Brother Zai, I'm sorry to bother you. Thank you for your help today." Dr. Zai waved his hand and said, "Don't come to my house like this next time." Although Lu Jiu was confused, he didn't ask any more questions and just waited in the living room while Li Chenmo went to the room to take Father Li out. When he saw Father Li's pale face, Lu Jiu was stunned for a moment. After they returned home, what exactly happened to Father Li? "Let's go home first," Li Chenz said depressedly. Everyone nodded and left together. Seeing that nothing interesting happened, the onlookers dispersed. After leaving Dr. Zai's house, Li Chenmo took his father home on his bicycle while Lu Jiu and the rest of the family walked on foot. Not long after, the elders of the Li family came and sat in the living room. When everyone was present, Father Li, who sat in the main seat with a pale face, said, "I'm sorry to trouble everyone to come over at this late." "Third brother, what's going on?" the second uncle asked. Father Li took a deep breath to calm down and said, "Everyone, from today onward, Li Chengshun will be expelled from my family genealogy. He is no longer a member of our Li family."